Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, Sample Chapter listeners. Welcome to episode 296 of the show. Hey, this week I'm very excited to be bringing to you a new author, Daniel Sheley. An award-winning author, Daniel has been telling stories for most of his life, shaped early by myth, folklore, and writers such as Thomas Malory and William Shakespeare. Those influences, combined with lived experiences, inform his focus on character, belief, and the cost of choice. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and the award-winning author of Heart Coil, Lux Mendicium, and For Scales Alone, which was a 2026 Indies Today Award, second runner-up in urban fantasy. His forthcoming novel, The Soul Sung, was a finalist in the Writers League of Texas Manuscript Contest and launches the Veritas Saga. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome from Texas, Daniel Sheley. Hey, Daniel.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm very happy to be here and to talk about my upcoming book.
Yes, I'm very happy to have you here too. I'm glad this all worked out. And yeah, we'll just start with how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Juggling work and kids and dogs and uh, writing as much as I possibly can.
Yes, absolutely. That sounds like life for a writer. So finding the time to write in the cracks of life. So you've got a nice collection already of other books that you've written. Heat Coil and the Lex For Scales Alone, the upcoming Veritas Saga. Tell us about a little bit of like what was your background in writing? Did you have a background, or was it just kind of a something you always aspired to do?
Well, when I was a kid, I read a lot. I couldn't. I had a new book every day, pretty much.
Mm.
You couldn't find me and not find me with a book. I dragged them with me to sports competitions in school. I'd finish my work early so I could sit in the back of the classroom and read whatever I wanted. Pop open The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and just sit there while other people are reading books like The Scarlet Letter. Uh, and during that time, I actually ran out of things to read at the local library. So I started writing a book that I finished. It's never been published. It was called The Last Bastion. But then life took a hold, and I just started writing poetry for a long time, just for myself and for friends. I'd give it to people. Um, then in 2015, a friend of mine, she traditionally published her first book. We went to high school together, and uh, she ended up traditionally publishing through Bloomsbury Spark, and we got to talking. She said, you should get back to writing." So I started writing short stories again, and I submitted a few to some contests and never got anywhere. Uh, but then this last year, I took several books that I had already started a couple years prior, and said, "Okay, time to do something with this." And so I published Lux Mendicium after I wrote it, and I wish I had gone back and edited it more. Heart Coil was a rewrite of a book that I had written called Tolston Tales, and Four Skills Alone was something that just came to me out of nowhere um, while I was in the middle of editing The Soul Sung, um, which is the big series I've been building towards. So for me, I've been writing my whole life. I just didn't really apply it directly towards publication until recently.
Yeah, but that's a great background though. That's it's I hear that kind of thing a lot where it's just I've always been tinkering with it, been writing, and it's just getting to that stage of I'm gonna finish this. Let me finish one, and that is so rewarding in itself. Is just writing the end. Tell me about that first time.
Oh, the first time was Lux, and after I finished it, I looked over at my loving, supportive wife, and I said to her, "I did it. I finished a book." Which I'd finished books prior, but they were never quite like ready. But this time I said, I finished it. It's good. You need to read it." And she said, "Well, then publish it." And that's what I did. I didn't think about oh, I need to have an editor first. No, I just published the book. And I rode that high for about 2 weeks. Then I went back and I said, oh, I really probably should have edited this.
uh, you are not alone, my friend. I famously did the same thing with my first novel, the 9 Mile Bridge. I hit the end and was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Put it up on Amazon, got my author's copy of it while it was live, and my author's copy came in. My wife grabbed it out of my hands and starts reading it, and she goes, "Oh my God, did you not edit this before?" It's like, well, yeah, I ran it through the processor, but after a chapter or two, I was like, I just edit all. I just hit that button and ran with that. And she was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I've actually still got that copy sitting off to the side here, and it's a thing of beauty because it's got so much red all over it. She grabbed my pen and she's got little stickers in there and notes and everything. Like, oh my gosh, this needs to be changed. This has to be updated. It's like, yeah. So I spent a couple weeks after that going through and changing everything. Not everything, but a lot, including adding a new chapter at the end. That she was like, no, you can't end it like this. It has to. She wanted something more uplifting than how I ended it originally.
Well, your wife will be your best critic. I'll tell you that.
Yes, yeah, she is not afraid to tell me what I need to hear.
So yeah, it's something I've always done and always wanted to do. And the Soul Song was me taking everything I learned from the first several books and then really putting it all together. I didn't want the story to be from a single perspective, but I wanted to also address like in all my other books, I address some pretty philosophical themes. And in the Soul Song, the Veritas Saga itself, the main theme is really centered on change and how it affects people when what you choose versus what you're forced to choose or what changes are forced upon you. And I broke it out into this idea and I said, okay, well, let's run with this idea. And I built the world around to support it, and I built the characters from archetypes. I took archetypes of personalities of myself from the past, and I gave fleshed them all out, gave them more of a backstory and more personality, so that I could then um, put them through this gauntlet, so to speak, to force change on some, to have some resist change, to have some willingly accept their change. And you get there's 8 point POVs in the book, and I wove. I didn't just build a plot. I wove subplots to create the main plot for the story so we could explore the change in a fantasy setting.
Wow. Okay, so you kind of really dove into the details and pre-planning the book, mapped it out, so to speak.
Yes and no. I wrote out subplot ideas. I wrote out the world. I wrote out what the main themes and the main storyline was going to be. But I I am a neurodivergent with ADHD, and therefore it's like partial structural planning and partial pantsing. But
Okay.
the pantsing works more along lines of causality. Um, when something happens, it has an equal reaction, and that is true of any choice we ever make in life. Whether the consequences are good or bad, every choice has consequences, and those play out down the lines very much like in a way a butterfly effect would. Only it affects not just the world, but also the people that you meet and their choices later on. So that's the pantsing side, is getting all that mixed in to stay in tune with the subplots.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's fascinating. And and that's something I'm always interested in is the writer's mind thinking about the causality and the conditions, go into something, and does this is this going to change something going forward? Because there's sometimes, you read something and it's like, oh, I thought that was going somewhere, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, and and maybe there's a reason for one way or the other. So, how did you determine? All right, yeah, this is going to go somewhere, or maybe it's kind of in the back of your mind, thinking maybe down somewhere else.
Um, like I said, I did have some structure in the planning of it. Like I knew where I wanted things to go, and I used pressure on characters to force some of the changes. For example, in the book, there's a um, oh, even in the first chapter, which you'll have the recording of and reading of, there is a line where the main character for the whole series, Denny, is told that after the events that happened to him, he's told that he has to go seek this Draken that will help him through the changes that are to come. Uh, he decides he's not going.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to him as a result of not going? It all stems down from his choice, and how's it going to affect other people? Well, that was built into the subplots that will tie forward going into the book. So I knew where I was going, and each choice that someone made was a part of their personality, as well as what I needed to happen going forward for the subplots to weave the way I wanted.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I like that too, and that's always a fun trope, I guess, if you will, where the hero does not want to. They're reluctant, like, oh no, I don't want to do this thing. That's my future, my destiny. I don't want it. I'm gonna go. I'm going over here. So
Yeah.
no, I'm not heading to the Death Star. I'm going back to Tatooine. So
Yeah. And from the very beginning, you get he's somewhat of a slacker. He wants no part of even his own society, his rituals and rites. He just wants to stare at the stars at night and just live his life. But he gets this destiny, so to speak, forced upon him just because he happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
no, I understand that music, rhythm, cadence, these sorts of things influence your writing. How does that work?
So, I'm a musician, trained by Kent Eppenberger from high school. He was a Grammy Award winning teacher. He served as a mentor for me. The musicality of speech is one of the things that I was fascinated by, and there is even some songs that really are almost just spoken word. And I got to thinking about that. And there's some stories and some authors, like Lawhead, for example, who has a specific cadence. It's almost lyrical, it's bardic in its way. And I said to myself, well, I can do that. So I integrated the musicality of speech into the way that words flow. Um, so you get like your short staccato type things for it to build tension, like a percussion build up in an orchestra. And when you need something that's more melodic, you get these long lines that just weave out with the words just coming across with the right breath. And
Hmm.
because I have an internal narrator that speaks aloud as I'm writing, I
Hmm.
hear the words and I can change the wording in my head before I put it on paper or it's not a paper before I type it.
Yeah.
Uh, and that allows me to keep that cadence flowing through like music.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. And is this like per character? Like each person has a different way of speaking and you're
Yes.
hearing it like that, like an orchestra?
Yeah, each character has their own cadence, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, for example, Denny's a little bit meandering in his cadence. He's more of a awe and wonder and seeing the world. Whereas another character in the story, Tara, is very like blunt. She's a percussion instrument through. Then you have characters like Talon. Talon's a wise draken, several hundred years old, but not as old as some of the others, but she's very she's like a flute or a light instrument, say a violin,
Hmm.
wise but not all-knowing and willing to learn and listen, but stands as more of a steady tone throughout the entire thing. She doesn't bounce around too much.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's fascinating, really, to think about that. And I'm like in my mind, kind of considering like some of my own characters and trying to put them to tones and musicality, in that sense. Like, okay, I can kind of see that now, and it makes some sense, the way you described that. I like that.
So the whole book is essentially an orchestra. You're getting
Yeah.
the performance.
Do you have so this the Soul Song is book one of the Veritas Saga. Do you have plans for like a big saga, or is it like just a trilogy? What are
Uh,
you kind of thinking?
right now, the main saga is going to be 3 books. The second book I finished the zero draft for. I'm currently working on cleaning that up so that it's readable for an editor. Um, but the main one's going to be 3 books. But I've envisioned a prequel already, and I've talked to some people about who have read the first book about it, and they said that that sounds like a great idea. And then I've also put together ideas or plans for a follow-up series that takes place a couple hundred years after the end of this series, because this whole series is already planned out. Like I know
Okay.
what happens in book 3. Book 2 is already written, but I already
Yeah.
know everything that happens in book 3. I just have to write it.
That's awesome. I'm a little bit jealous in that because the series I'm writing, I know how I want it to end, but I'm several books away from that point, getting to that point, and I have stories on how I want to get there. I'm 3 books in. I'm in the process of a prequel right now before I dive back into. I'm kind of looking at it in terms of individual trilogies with one big book to finish it, maybe. So maybe 10. I don't know.
Oof.
But it's we'll see how that goes. I don't know. Well, maybe it could end up just being 6. I don't know. We'll see how that goes down the road. So now you're also a veteran. Thank you so much for your service. How did your military career shape your writing, or did it?
Uh, Military career gave me a little bit more of a structural thinking. I was forced into leadership roles. And the military is really good at putting you into a pressure cooker. You and everyone around you. And even from boot camp, the Navy boot camp, they give you these tasks to complete, but they don't tell you how to complete them. And then they just leave the room to see how you come up with a solution on your own. Uh, it it serves as a nice a human experiment, so to speak, on how people act under pressure. And being in the Navy, you're definitely put under pressure. Um, so in terms of towards my writing, it gave me it gave me character studies. Um, it also helped me with uh, making sure that I maintain system for doing things. For example, I'll be writing one book, and I make it a point to write at least every night for a minimum of 4 to 8 hours.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I set aside that time after my wife goes to bed, and I just write.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes I'll spend half that time doing editing for one book while I'm starting writing another book. Right now, I took a break from writing to just focus on the editing for the sequel and the upcoming release of The Soul Song. But normally, I'll be writing and editing a book simultaneously.
Okay, that's fascinating. Yeah, and I can see that. I had 3 years in the Air Force before I got out medically, but I can look back and recall my time in and the lessons I learned. Characters have appeared in my stories that are people that I can like, yeah, that's kind of reminds me of this person or that person, this sergeant. um, recurring in other stories, and it certainly has been helpful. But I understand what you're saying, how that it gives you a floor, I guess, to begin something and a structure to move
Yes.
forward with it.
Yeah, the structure that you get from high impact, high demand jobs such as being at sea for 8 months. uh, it teaches you how to really organize your time and to really see how things affect people.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I imagine so. So, and that's always an interesting character study to see that and kind of get a little introspection into it, and then can use that um, carefully with other characters going forward.
Well, and thank you for your service as well.
Oh, thank you. That's no problem. So, all right. So we have a few more minutes here. I want to bring up. We were talking beforehand. On top of this other stuff, you also have a few uh, conditions that you deal with your writing.
Yeah.
Describe that a little bit so that the listeners can understand, you know, who you are as a writer and this remarkable career you're putting together.
So, um, I am, as I stated a little bit ago, I'm neurodivergent. I have AUDHD, um, and that plays into how I write and what I write heavily. F I start with something like a philosophical thought I have, and because the world exists the way it does, we face a lot of backlash on bringing up topics or thoughts. So I use fantasy to write how the world is, not necessarily what we want it to be, but how it actually is. And I use fantasy as a kind of costume to create the stage play, so that we can really examine the philosophies of what is going on and what these characters are facing without the systemic backlash that we get from society. Um, the easiest way to say this is if somebody is of a different ethnicity and there's a systemic backlash on them, if we write that out, we're going to face all kinds of criticisms. But if we instead just narrow it down to just look at the systemic backlash that this character is getting in society, through a view whole of, say, another fantasy creature, and examine why is he being looked at in this way, without all of the pressures of our real world lives. We can ask questions of, okay, well, maybe this isn't okay, or maybe this isn't right. Why is this allowed? Uh, it helps us come up with our own viewpoints on the world by looking at it through the lens of fantasy.
Hmm.
And it's because my AUDHD that my brain searches for these patterns and tries to put them together, while also forcing me to write them at Mach 4.
And that's fascinating. That's a theme that comes up from time to time on the show, and it's something I'm not sure how often I ever considered it before diving into the world of writing, being an author, and you start thinking about real world conditions and how to write about them. And I think the idea of using fantasy or even science fiction um, as a background to deal with social issues or even racial issues is a great way to address it where everybody can look at it, and whether they realize it or not, this is something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and it can be mirrored in that way.
Yes, yeah. We see it in all kinds of books everywhere. It's just my own personal way of doing it. I think deep thoughts as a result of my neurotype, and I cannot look at them from every single angle. So, congratulations, you all get to join me in my books.
I'm really hoping in the back of my mind, I just jumped off topic there for a second. I was like, okay, I really hope that your blog is Deep Thoughts with Daniel Sheley.
My blog is the Ashwake blog, but it does address things like I talked about why I write fantasy. I talked about what it's like for me to write with ADHD. Every now and then I'll drop a small short story or flash fiction in there. Um, but yeah, you can't get away from thoughts like that. Like one of the short stories in there is A Toast Purpose, where I examine a piece of toast that was left in the toaster and personify it. And I don't want to ruin the ending, but it's really about the toast, like feeling like because it's left there in the toaster and is forgotten that it has no purpose. It didn't serve its usefulness. It ends nicely, but you're just forced to examine this philosophical thought of what is someone's purpose and what happens if they don't feel like they fulfilled it.
Oh my gosh. That's one of the wonderful things I never anticipated about doing this show is getting insights like that from my guests and hearing something that is, potentially off the wall, but also so amusing. And it makes me want to just jump right over and go read about this piece of toast now because that is fascinating. I love it. All right, Daniel. Hey, before I let you go, I understand you've got you want to put in a plug for some friends real quick.
Yes, in Midland, we have a authors group that we're all supportive of each other. We help each other out with events, and we talk all the time. We even swap stories from now and then. We're called the Scribes. Uh, they consist of me, Megan Rico, Mercedes Kofed, Louis Prito, Dusty Sanders, and Chance Spencer, as well as Lucy O. I just wanted to give a shout out for them as well. Make sure that they're recognized in this because they're a great support for me as an author.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad you did that. I don't know where I'd be today without my writing group, the Writers of Warrensburg, that really supported me when I decided to start making this a full-time exploration, we'll say. So they've been very supportive. So yeah, I love that you're wanting to give them a shout out. So hey, scribes, y'all, hope you enjoy this interview with Daniel. Well, Daniel, all right, so we're gonna wrap things up here. I have one follow up question with you. It's just a fun one. A would you rather? So, would you rather have dinner for a few hours with your favorite author or your favorite fictional character, either your own or something you've read?
Oh, that's hard. Uh, I would choose my favorite author because he can
Yeah.
create all kinds of other characters.
And who is this? Who, why, and why?
Oh, see, this is tough, but if I have to choose one right now, I'd choose Rick Riordan.
Okay.
Rick Riordan. Um, my love of mythology and fantasy, I could probably sit and talk to him about mythology all night long.
Fantastic. That would be great. So, all right. Well, where can people find and follow you?
I'm on Instagram at Daniel Sheley Author. I also have my own website, danielsheleyauthor.com. Right now, those are mostly the places to follow me. I am also on Goodreads and Amazon.
Perfect. Yes, and I have all the links for all of these. They will be in the show notes. So that way, everyone, you can go in there and trust me. If you search Amazon for Daniel Sheley, you're going to get Shiley. You get Frankenstein stuff popping up. So click the links that I'm going to provide for you. So that way, you can go right to his work. You can pull up his books and his Instagram, his website, all this stuff, and get right in there. Daniel, thank you so much. This has been eye-opening and a fascinating look into your world, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It has been my pleasure. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, Daniel will be back next week with a sample reading from The Soul Song, Book 1 of the Veritas Saga. Until then, take care, everyone.